I killed 8 of my babies. I am Dominique Cotres. Listen carefully to my story because you could be the next victim. As a mother of 2 little girls, I was living a normal life until the day everything changed. In 10 years, I gave birth to 8 other children that I suffocated right after their birth. My husband and daughters never knew anything. My past as a victim of incest had made me lose my mind. Also, I didn't want to take the pill, and hospitals scared me because the caregivers humiliated me because of my weight during my previous pregnancies. For me, killing my babies after they were born was my method of birth control. I then hid the bodies in my father's house. But in 2010, the new owners of my father's house discovered 2 infant corpses while gardening. A search revealed 6 more bodies. I confessed to everything, and I was convicted. Despite my crimes, my oldest daughter supports me. My husband is shocked that he didn't see anything. It's normal, an obese woman can easily hide her pregnancy. I was sentenced to 9 years in prison for my actions. Today I am free. I can finally live again. Babies have the right to live and grow. Your parents gave you this chance. I should have done the same for those little ones. Can you forgive me?
I killed a lot of children and scared the whole of Japan at the age of 14. I am Sito Sakakibara. I was an overly intelligent schoolboy. I made people believe I was an angel. But in reality, I was obsessed with violence. I was too fond of horror movies and manga. One day, I took action. I killed 2 children, an 11-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. I enjoyed it too much. I also hurt 3 other kids. I did crazy things to them. And you know what? I left letters to taunt the police. I used an alias, Azuma, to send them messages and scary drawings. The investigators were overwhelmed. I was laughing too hard at the fact that they were looking for me. The media kept talking about my crimes and parents were terrified for their children. They were right to worry about me, but unfortunately, the cops were able to catch me through DNA and fingerprinting. They were hallucinating, and yes, the evil genius at 14. I want you to know that now I'm free. I could come to your house to say a little hello.
This is Jocelyn Wildenstein. Some of you may know her as Catwoman. That is what tabloids in the US like to refer to her as. Jocelyn was born in Switzerland in the 1940s. She had a very normal middle-class upbringing. She had no kind of extravagant wealth of any kind. In fact, her father worked at a struggling sporting goods store while she was growing up. But at the age of 17, Jocelyn's very humble life would turn into something that was much, much more extravagant. Jocelyn began dating a Swiss film producer, and the two eventually ended up moving to Paris together. Their relationship eventually ended up fizzling out, and Jocelyn began dating a European film producer. Jocelyn and this European filmmaker were in a relationship for a total of 5 years, and they spent the majority of their relationship exploring Africa together. Jocelyn often would describe Africa as a paradise on earth. Due to the social ladder that Jocelyn had climbed in her 2 very high-profile relationships, she found herself in very elite circles of people. At one point, Jocelyn was on a safari in Kenya, where she crossed paths with billionaire Alec Wildenstein. Alec came from a family who were big cat enthusiasts, they were horse racing experts, and they were very high-profile art collectors. There was an instant connection between Alec and Jocelyn, and within a year of meeting, they were exchanging vows in a little chapel in Las Vegas. The couple would later go on to have 2 children together. Within a year of their marriage, Jocelyn began spending copious amounts of money on cosmetic procedures. Initially, Alec and Jocelyn both received his and her eyelid lift surgeries, but after that initial procedure, Jocelyn decided she wanted to continue receiving procedures to make her appearance seem more feline. Jocelyn believed that her looking more feline would please her husband, as he had a really big love for large cats. The couple also had a pet lynx together, and they both believed that the lynx had the most beautiful eyes, and she used the lynx as her inspiration for how she wanted to look. Just while married to Alec, Jocelyn spent a total of $2 million on cosmetic procedures. Alec told Jocelyn many, many times she needed to stop receiving procedures and altering her appearance, but Jocelyn refused. In 1997, Jocelyn walked in on her husband in bed with a 21-year-old Russian model. This led to a DV altercation, which resulted in Alec pulling a weapon on Jocelyn. Alec was arrested for this and subsequently spent the night in jail for this, and as soon as he got out, he filed for divorce against Jocelyn. Go to part two. Part two. Alec filing for divorce was the beginning of a very messy, very public 2-year divorce. Jocelyn was absolutely furious when Alec cut off her phone, cut off her credit cards, and slashed her monthly allowance from $150,000 a month to only $50,000 a month. Like I said, their divorce was really public, and the tabloids were extremely unforgiving to Jocelyn. They would regularly run pieces absolutely tearing apart her looks. Eventually, Jocelyn was awarded a $2.5 billion divorce settlement, and Alec had to pay Jocelyn a total of $100 million every year for 13 years. However, the judge stipulated that Jocelyn was not allowed to use any of these funds for any more cosmetic procedures. After their divorce, Jocelyn began a new relationship. Jocelyn kept a very low profile and was really only photographed in public when she would attend her new French designer boyfriend's fashion shows. These two were together for many years before a very dramatic DV situation brought their relationship to a halt. Jocelyn was arrested for clawing at her boyfriend's face, slashing him with scissors, and hitting him over the head with a tray. As of today, Jocelyn is 82 years old and has gone completely broke. The divorce alimony payment stopped coming in May of 2015, and since then, she has had absolutely no income. In my mind, I truly believe that Jocelyn had a serious addiction to cosmetic surgery. Believe it or not, to this day, Jocelyn still denies that she ever had any sort of cosmetic procedure done. She claims that her smooth skin is due to her Swiss heritage.
This is what happened to sisters Sarah and Amina Saeed and how they identified their killer in a 911 call. Amina was born on March 3rd, 1989 in Dallas, Texas, and her younger sister Sarah was born on March 16th, 1990, also in Dallas, Texas. They had an older brother named Islam, and their parents were Patricia Owens and Yasser Saeed. There's a very big age gap between Patricia and Yasser. When they started dating, Patricia was only 14 years old and Yasser was 29. Within 3 weeks of dating, Yasser and Patricia decided to get married. Now, the only way that Patricia was allowed to get married is by her parents' permission. The way they got this is that Yasser told her family that he was wealthy and that he would provide for Patricia. Now, Patricia's family didn't come from a lot of money, so when they heard this, they agreed and they allowed Patricia to marry Yasser at 15 years old. However, what Yasser said wasn't technically true. He didn't come from a lot of money. In fact, he actually worked as a taxi driver, which there's nothing wrong with, but he lied to Patricia. They got married and she actually had to work multiple jobs to help provide for the family. About 6 months into their marriage, things started to go downhill. Patricia claims that Yasser became physically and mentally abusive. When Amina and Sarah were 8 and 9 years old, they told their maternal grandmother that their father, Yasser, had been essaying them for about 2 to 3 years. Of course, the grandmother told Patricia about what the girls had said, so Patricia packed up their things and moved out. Officers went to go speak to Amina and Sarah, and they told the police that their father had put his front part into their front part. However, before Yasser could get arrested, the girls recanted their statement. Now, Patricia's side of the family believes that Yasser somehow convinced Patricia to convince the girls to recant everything and to admit that they made everything up. And for some reason, police just believed them and they never followed through with the investigation. After they recanted their statement, they packed everything back up and they moved back in with Yasser. Even though they recanted their statement, a lot of people feel like the girls were telling the truth. There are these home videos made by Yasser and they just make you feel so uncomfortable. In this video here, Amina and Sarah were in their bed trying to hide from their father. He kept filming them and the girls kept telling him to go away, to erase the footage, and to leave them alone. At one point, Yasser tells her brother Islam to remove the girls' blanket, and Islam does. After the blankets get removed, Yasser starts to tell the girls that they have very nice legs, and he also zooms in on Sarah's butt. Yes, he's zooming in on his own daughter's body. It's just very creepy, and you can clearly see that both girls are uncomfortable with their father. By the time the girls were teenagers, Yasser was already trying to set them up with an arranged marriage back in Egypt. Obviously, the girls did not want this. They wanted to date and, find their own person, but Yasser wanted to set them up. On December 24th, 2007, Amina refused another one of her dad's proposals for an arranged marriage. And this made him angry, so Patricia and the girls packed up their things and left. Everyone kept telling Patricia to not go back to Yasser, but unfortunately, she did. Amina actually had a secret boyfriend at the time, and when she found out that her mom was going back to Yasser, she texted him this. January 1st, 2008, 911 received a phone call from 17-year-old Sarah Saeed. She told the operator, "Help me, my dad shot me, I'm dying." Okay, more in part 2. This is part 2 on what happened to sisters Amina and Sarah Saeed and how they identified their killer in a 911 call. So 911 gets a call from Sarah at around 7:30 p.m. and she says, "Help, my dad shot me, I'm dying." The 911 operator asks her, "Are you okay? What's going on, ma'am?" And she replies and says, "I'm dying, that's what's up." You can then hear Sarah pleading for her life, asking her father to stop shooting her. Then Sarah goes silent. Meanwhile, 911 is trying to track down their location so they can go send help, and in that moment they get another 911 call. This time it's from a bystander who says that they see 2 girls' bodies inside the back of a taxi cab. With that information, police arrive to the scene, and that's when they discover the bodies of 18-year-old Amina Saeed and 17-year-old Sarah Saeed. Amina was sitting in the passenger seat of the car and she had been shot twice in the chest. Sarah was sitting in the back seat and she had been shot 9 times. It's shocking how Sarah still had the energy and the strength to call 911 and literally used her last breath to identify the killer as her father. After finding Amina and Sarah, police start searching for Yasser, the killer, but he is nowhere to be found. They go check the family house, they check his work, they check everywhere, but it's like he vanished into thin air. The media immediately got a hold of the case and they started referring to the murders as honor killings. And then Yasser was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Now when Patricia heard the news that her 2 daughters had been murdered by her husband, their father, of course she was completely heartbroken. She couldn't believe that this had happened, and now she was just left with her son Islam. However, Islam didn't really seem to care that much. He didn't do any interviews talking about what happened to his sisters. He didn't ask for his father to turn himself in, nothing. Now a lot of people, including Patricia's family, feel like she brought Amina and Sarah back to Yasser knowing that he would murder them. She denies this. She says that she had no idea that Yasser would ever do this to his own daughters. It's just really sad because I feel like Patricia did not do enough to protect her own daughters. Starting from when they were just little girls and said that their father had been essaying them. Even after hearing that from the girls, she still let them live with Yasser. Then, just a couple of weeks before the murders, she left Yasser, she moved to Oklahoma, but then she decided to go back. I just feel like Amina and Sarah were failed by their mother. After the murders, people suspected that Yasser had immediately fled to Egypt, but there was never any proof of that. 12 years went by without any movement in the case until August of 2020. This is when police started a 24-hour surveillance of a home in Justin, Texas. During this time, they saw Islam, Amina and Sarah's older brother, and their uncle coming and going from the house. Along with them, they also saw the shadow of someone moving inside the house, who they believed was Yasser. On August 26, 2020, police were able to get a search warrant, and when they went inside the house, they found Yasser Saeed. He was found hidden inside a room with a cot in the back of the house's garage. Yasser, Islam, and the uncle were arrested, and their trials began in 2021. Islam was sentenced to 10 years in prison for harboring a fugitive. The uncle was sentenced to 12 years, and Yasser was sentenced to life in prison. I'm glad that Amina and Sarah got the justice that they deserve.
This is a photo that was found on the ground outside of a convenience store in Florida in June 15th of 1989. And that picture to this day has still gone unidentified. It was found by a lady who was just leaving. She saw the picture on the floor, picked it up, looked at it, and obviously it's a horrible, it looks very bad. So of course she calls the cops and turns the photo in. Once the photo was handed over to the cops, they consulted with Polaroid. Polaroid told them that this picture was taken at least after May of 1989. The photo was found in June. So that means that that photo was fairly recent. Once this photo starts going viral, back then viral, it was all over the news everywhere. The family of this girl who went missing all the way across the country in New Mexico was certain that that was their daughter, Tara Calico. She was a 19-year-old from New Mexico who just went missing while riding her bike. But a lot of detectives from all over the country examined this photo and they were sure that it was not their daughter. They said that this is a photo that was found on the ground outside of a convenience store in Florida in June 15th of 1989. And that picture to this day has still gone unidentified. They said that this is not your daughter. They did some type of forensic examination of the photo and they came to the conclusion that that was not her daughter. The boy in the photo was thought to be this kid named Michael Henley who went missing also in 1988, which was a year before. And if you look at these pictures side by side, you can see where the similarities come in. But once again, the cop said that's not him. What's crazy is that neither Michael nor Sarah have ever been found, and that picture to this day has still gone unidentified. It has never been identified almost 40 years later.
Sir. Do you have any questions regarding that? So it is 14:39 hours on January 25th.
Do you need something?
Any questions?
You have any questions for that? No?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Today, witnesses shared horrific details about the murders of 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and her little brother, 7-year-old JJ Vallow. Their mom, Lori Vallow, is charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and grand theft in their deaths. She's also charged with conspiracy and theft in the death of her now husband, Chad Daybell's late wife, Tammy Daybell.
We want to warn you, this story shares some graphic details and may be hard for some of you to watch. But Abby Davis joins us now with a breakdown of what happened in court. And Abby, the question is, this was really hard for a lot of jurors to hear, right? This was a tough day.
It really was, and some people were crying, others were actually throwing up. For the first time, experts revealed JJ and Tylee's autopsy reports, and they spared no details. On Wednesday, the court heard graphic new details about how JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan died. Two kids, just 7 and 16 years old. Dr. Garth Warren with the Ada County Coroner's Office spent most of the day reviewing JJ and Tylee's autopsy reports.
Dr. Warren, what is your occupation or profession?
I am a forensic pathologist.
Warren conducted the autopsies on June 11, 2020, just 2 days after investigators found the kids' remains on their mother's 5th and current husband, Chad Daybell's property.
Was this the first time you had ever seen JJ Vallow?
Yes.
And approximately how long did that autopsy last?
It took approximately 4 hours.
Warren revealed JJ suffocated to death. During cross-examination, defense attorney John Thomas asked Warren how he came to that conclusion.
JJ was found with a plastic bag over his head that was duct taped tightly. He was bound. There was evidence of a struggle, and there was no other explanation of why he was dead.
Thomas continued asking Warren how he knew this without swabbing inside JJ's nose.
I've never heard anybody doing that in this type of situation.
Okay, what type of situation are you talking about?
Bag over the head.
Okay, so when someone has a bag over their head, and I'm just going off of things I've seen in movies and whatnot.
That's scary.
That's scary to you?
Yeah, but you're going off movies.
Well, you're going off of...
my knowledge.
Knowledge, okay.
When Warren described how Tylee died, he said it was homicide by, quote, unspecified means. So the examiner knows Tylee was murdered, but cannot pinpoint exactly where or how it happened because of what her remains looked like.
The vast majority of the times when I perform an autopsy, I get an entire body. There's a process that we went through. Tylee's case was different. Tylee's remains were received in 3 separate sealed bags.
FBI Special Agent Steve Daniels also took the stand, finishing his testimony from Tuesday. Daniels talked about law enforcement's search of Chad Daybell's property.
When we left off yesterday, I believe we had spoken about in this exhibit the house, the fire pit, Tylee's burial site, and the garage and shed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Daniels described the area around JJ's grave.
What's interesting now is just the precise way that these rocks are laid out. You can start to see the cut roots around this grave, especially the bigger roots. So somebody's taken time and effort to cut through these roots.
Daniels said after they found JJ, they knew Tylee's remains were somewhere on the property too. Throughout the day, witnesses referred to different photos. Some of those photos were so graphic that only jurors looked at them. Of course, we have a more detailed recap of the day on our website, ktvb.com. But Brian and Morgan, again, these testimonies were just so graphic. It was a really tough day for some people in court.
But, you know, prosecutors saying yesterday, at least when I was in court, that they have to show some of these things because it's evidence and they need jurors to be able to take it all into account. And going back to a story we did last week, we asked Ada County if they were going to be offering counseling services for jurors. They said that they were looking into that. and it would be a possibility, and they have done that in cases in the
Definitely a needed resource for these jurors.
It's based on a true story. This guy, he gets convicted 10 years in prison for gun charges. This is all real. Larry Hall is his name in real life. They want to pin murders on him. They've kind of caught up to his game now. He would say to the police, oh, I murdered that girl in that county. I'm confessing to it. But then they would go through the research and be like, no, you couldn't have possibly. But he would cop to it. And then the cops would be like, that's what he does. He confesses to murders. He's a bullshitter. But he really was killing people. He was confessing to false ones so he could get away with the real ones. Holy wild. They got to get him to confess to one of these murders because they found the girl's body. Because he was killing kids, like 14-year-old girls, like brutal shit, raping them, horrific. So they say to this kid, look, you got the gift of gab. You got 10 years in federal prison. We're going to transfer you to this maximum security prison where Larry Hall is. If you can get him to confess to the murder of this girl that we have evidence on, your sentence is commuted immediately and you're out of prison. But he was in a minimum security prison, so he would be able to either coast through 10 years or take a chance and go to the prison with murderers, rapists, and potentially be murdered in the shower stall. But if he can get him to confess, then he'll get out. Holy shit. And that's what the show's
We'll present 2 bachelor's degrees. First, a bachelor's degree in general studies to the family of Kaylee Jade Gonsalves. President Green, Kaylee Jade Gonsalves has been recommended by the faculty of the College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences to receive a posthumous bachelor's degree.
By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents of the University of Idaho, I hereby confer upon Kaylee J. Gonsalves the posthumous degree earned, in testimony whereof her family will receive the diploma of the University of Idaho.
Never give up, one day we will reunite. The sun shines so bright here in heaven. I love peace, I'm happy and free. And someday we will walk these clouds together. But first we must find
on the main page, I won't be locked in your cage. Break with what I've built, I can't go on without you. I hope you'll feel the same mood. The caption on the main page, I won't be locked in your cage. I can't go on without you. I hope you'll feel the same mood. Your kiss I need, the caption on the main page, I won't be locked in your cage.